Hey guys, it's Kay, and if you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. We are doing a series called Murder and Makeup, which I feel like is pretty self-explanatory. So today we are talking about the Hinterkaifeck murders, which I actually did just film this and got about halfway through and had an error on my camera that I did not see, so here we go again. So this is an unsolved case. It takes place in 1920s Germany on a family farm, Hinterkaifeck. The residents of the farm were Andreas Gruber, who was 63, 72-year-old wife Cecilia, 35-year-old daughter Victoria Gabriel, her children 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph. The maid, Maria Baumgartner, actually started on the same day as the murders, March 31st. Locals saw Andreas as a miserably ill-tempered man, an opinion that would only worsen throughout time, as rumors began of a sexual relationship between he and his daughter Victoria. During this time, Andreas Gruber was sentenced to a year in prison for the crime of incest, and Victoria was sentenced to a month. As a result of this relationship, it was believed that her son was actually fathered by her father instead of the neighbor, Lauren Schlittenbauer, who was named on his birth certificate. Lawrence had actually claimed several times that he wasn't the father, and claimed it to be Andreas, he being the one who reported the crime. Andreas and Victoria again faced charges of incest in 1919, but are acquitted in 1920. This was after Lawrence had taken back the claim that he said he was the father of the child yet again. It's been said that Andreas tried to pay Lawrence off to keep him quiet, or that Victoria agreed to pay him off and pay for all of his fees for the child, basically. All costs, without Andreas's knowledge. Another rumor is that Victoria promised to marry Lawrence if the charges were dropped. So who really knows, other than them, of course. So on to the murders. April 1st, 1992, Victoria's daughter Cecilia did not attend school. The next day, none of the family were at church, so people started to get a little worried because they never missed church. By April 3rd, Cecilia still had not attended school, and the mailman noticed that there was still mail from his last visit on April 1st in the mailbox, and that he had not seen the family when he was passing the window, which he often did. Several neighbors reported seeing smoke come from the chimney during those days, however. April 4th, Albert Hoffner, a mechanic working on the feeding machine on the farm for several hours, reported not seeing anyone the whole time, despite trying to get the family's attention twice. So he told a neighbor that he hadn't seen the family, but that the job was done. Later that day, since nobody had seen the family, several neighbors went to the farm to check on them, but all the doors were locked when they got there, so naturally they broke it. In the barn, the bodies of Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and her daughter Cecilia were found. They were stacked on top of each other with little Cecilia hidden under some straw. In the farmhouse, they found the maid Maria and 2-year-old Joseph dead in the sleeping chambers. Joseph was still in his crib. By the time Munich police arrived, the crime scene was already heavily contaminated by locals who walked all over it and even made snacks in their kitchen. Because, you know, when you're at a crime scene, you're like, oh yeah, I could go for a sandwich right now. Just naturally makes you hungry. The autopsies determined they had all been bludgeoned by a pickaxe numerous times to the head, other than Joseph, who was killed with one blow. I believe it was the family's pickaxe as well, which was locked away in their tool shed. They also determined that little Cecilia had remained alive for several hours after the attacks, during which time she pulled many clumps of hair out of her own head, leaving several bald spots. They assumed she was scared as she lay dying next to her already dead family. During the autopsy, the doctor removed all of the victims' heads and sent them to Munich to be studied because they had the best technology at the time. However, all the heads were lost in an air raid on the Court of Justice building in Augsburg during World War II. Police hypothesized the victims in the barn were lured there one at a time and killed. Then the killer made his way into the house to finish his spree. At first, the police thought the motive behind the murders was robbery, but when they searched the place, they found large sums of money, which kind of defeated the idea of it being a robbery. The killer remained at the house for several days until Saturday. The bodies were found Sunday, feeding the animals and milking the cows, even using the fireplace, causing the chimney smoke the neighbors reported seeing. During the investigation, police kept being told of strange incidents going on at the farm prior to the murders. So the maid that was killed, Maria, was hired on the day of the murders to replace the previous maid, who quit 6 months earlier, claiming that the house was haunted because she'd heard voices, footsteps, and noises in the attic. So they let her go thinking she was crazy, basically. A month or so before the murder, the family started hearing noises in the attic as well, and Andreas told neighbors about them, but said when he went up to check, nothing was there. He also told neighbors he found a newspaper on the farm that didn't belong to the family. Keys had gone missing, and he had seen footsteps in the snow leading from the forest to his house, but no footsteps leaving the house. So he suspected a break-in. Over 100 suspects were questioned by the police about the Hinterkaifeck murders, but they never charged anyone with them. However, the mechanic that worked on the farm Sunday wasn't interviewed until 1933, 11 years after the murders. This one actually has a few potential suspects still, since it remains unsolved. Almost 30 years after the murders, a woman named Crescentia Meyer told a priest on her deathbed that her two brothers, Adolf and Anton Gump, were responsible for the murders. Adolf was made a suspect in 1922, though he was also suspected in the killing of 9 peasants with 3 other men. By the time he was named a suspect by his sister, he had passed away. Anton was detained but released shortly after due to lack of evidence, and eventually cleared as a suspect. Investigators also discovered his sister had a history of making stories up. Another theory was that Victoria's husband Carl heard about her child belonging to her father and killed the family as revenge. However, Carl Gabriel was killed on the Western Front in World War I. Many say his body was never found, so the theory was that he survived and killed the family. However, several soldiers did claim to witness Carl die when he stood on a mine. Another theory was that Carl told a story about his wife being well off financially, and a soldier from his unit killed the family for money after his service was over. But that contradicts the large sums of cash found at the scene. The next theory claims that the family was murdered by an extreme left or right-wing political group. After World War I, Nazis and communists engaged in acts that led to fighting and bloodshed. Due to the location, it was speculated that the group used the house as a camp or meeting place, but nothing linked Andreas to any political group. The last theory was that Lawrence committed the murders. He was the potential father of Joseph, and when he found out it wasn't his child, he reported them to police. It's also said that Victoria planned to sue Lawrence for money for Joseph, and he was very mad about that, considering he didn't think Joseph was his, and she was better off financially than he and most other people in the area. He also offered Andreas a gun after he had reported the strange occurrences to him, an offer that Andreas would decline. He was also one of the first to find the bodies stacked on top of each other, and immediately went over to them and started moving them, saying that he was looking for his son, that he kept claiming wasn't his. Then, after the murders, he said he had no doubt that Joseph was his. He also asked investigators if he would get the money back that he had paid for Joseph, which isn't a typical thing that you ask if your family and your son and his family had just been murdered. He actually was a suspect but was never charged due to lack of evidence. To further this theory, in 2007, a group of students at the police academy looked into the case and all came out believing it was Lawrence, but he had passed away by this time. So the case remains unsolved. The farm has since been made into a memorial for the family. Thank you for joining me today. That was the Hinterkaifeck murders. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like, subscribe down below so you don't miss any further videos, and if you have a case or a serial killer that you would like to hear about, feel free to leave that down in the comments as well. And I will see you guys in the next video.